Okay, this is the pricing target that I use with sellers. One thing to note is that I use this after we have signed listing paperwork. I don't typically go over this before. And the script goes something like this. Mr. Seller, we operate in ranges in real estate. We don't really operate in absolutes because like we talked about, fair market value is really the price that the seller is willing to sell at and a buyer is willing to buy at. And that price is really almost impossible to actually know on an open market setting. Sometimes we have to go on the market in order to determine what that exact number is. We usually know the range. We're pretty good at the range, but there can be various market cycles, interest rates, different things that happen that affect that, right? Affect that. How many homes went on the market the same day yours did or that week? Any news that happened, any world events and such. So this is kind of how we know. We know by the amount of activity that's happening once we list the home. So here's how it works. We list a property and one of four things happens. The first one is nothing happens. That's pretty unusual. That's this last outer ring here, drive-bys only. Very few showings. Sometimes you'll see a couple showings will happen up front simply because there are a group of people who are looking at homes, right when a home comes on the market in a particular area, but really not a lot happens. You might see the neighbors take flyers. You might even see cars pull up but not come in, and it's a dead zone, and that's not common, luckily. The second thing that happens is you'll have some cars come, drive by, slow down. They might scan for the flyer, but not a lot of showings. Again, you'll have some showings, but not a lot. We have some ratios that we look at per area that we can talk about. And side note, my ratios are typically, I don't know, 15 to 20 groups through a home, including open houses in Seattle to get an offer. And that's usually closer to 8 to 10 on the east side, and then it can go down and be five in some parts of Snohomish County. So what that means is for every group of people I just said, you would expect an offer. So if we have a really hot listing on the east side and maybe we have 30 or 40 groups through um, first 3 or 4 days on the market between open houses and showings, I would expect a couple offers. I would expect between 2 and 3 offers in a market like this, but that doesn't always happen. But drive ups and low number of showings is not even that many. It takes a long time. It can take a full week or two to get to 8 to 10 showings, right? And in Seattle that can be a little higher, but it's not high enough. This luckily is the most common thing that happens when we don't sell right away. And that's that we are getting showings and we are getting open house activity, but we're not getting offers. So we're hitting our ratio numbers without offers coming in. That's a very clear indication that we need to adjust, and that almost always is in that 4 to 6% range, right around 5% on price. The other thing that happens obviously is that it sells. So we would list on or around a Thursday typically, and look at offers hopefully no sooner than that Tuesday. And it either sells at full price or a very strong offer. If not full price, it's a very strong offer. Or we sometimes get multiple offers when the market dictates that. And that's of course something that happens, but when that's happening, we don't have to have this conversation. So going back to here, typically what I find is that we need to adjust it in the 5% range. So what happens is we're going to have our first pricing conversation after that second weekend. And I'm not saying we are going to lower price, but I am saying that's really when we're going to have that first conversation. We can see what's happening over the first 2 weekends on the market, that first 10 to 14 days on the market. We can see what's happening. I'm very active trying to work those showings and those customers, trying to get them into written offers. But in that week after the second weekend, we're going to have a pricing discussion. We don't often lower it that week, by the way, but we'll talk about it at that point, and we'll kind of know what direction that we're moving in. Often we don't lower it if we have someone circling around and we're trying to get them to write up an offer. Side note, but usually though, if it's not happening and we continue to drag, I would look at a price reduction, if not that week, then the week after that or the week after that. So by certainly by somewhere between week 2 and 4 is when we're doing a price adjustment. That normally does the trick. If not, we kind of same cycle. We'll revisit it at that period of time. You really want to try to sell your house in no more than 45 days if possible. It starts getting stale. What I have found is when you are reducing price, it can start the cycle over. And what I mean by that is when you get to that sweet spot, it does not hinder multiple offers. So it's not unusual for us to give a price reduction of 4 or 5% and then get multiple offers, and it ends up somewhere in the middle, right? In the middle of where you reduced it and what you had it listed, and various results like that. So this is what we can expect, and again, we know that based on the activity. Side note, we know that based on the activity more than the comments. And what I mean by that is we often will not get comments, especially in this tier here, in the showing but not offer tier. We'll often get comments that are not price related. They're actually complimentary about the house, and they like it. They won't mention price in a lot of these. Sometimes they will, but they don't always mention price. But what happens is the activity is what shows us they vote with their feet, meaning they're not putting an offer together to write offer on the house. And so really the activity is what dictates to us the most, and we of course couple it with the comments. We do look at comments closely and constructively, but it is interesting to note that they don't always talk about the price, which I think is kind of interesting. So, yeah, that's what to expect. We'll be talking to you every step of the way. However, we will kind of launch into a pricing analysis and a pricing strategy conversation after that second weekend. Okay. All right.